My name is Amber Mitchell, and at 34 years old I thought I understood my family. That Sunday at our annual reunion, I arrived excited, looking for my 7-year-old daughter Madison who'd spent the weekend with my sister Stephanie. The moment I spotted her hiding in the corner wearing a baseball cap in the summer heat, my heart sank. When I removed it, revealing her completely shaved head, Madison burst into tears. Stephanie just laughed, shrugging casually. "It's just a joke, lighten up." My world stopped spinning as rage coursed through my veins. Before I continue with what happened next, drop a comment letting me know where you're watching from, hit that like button and subscribe to hear more stories about standing up for your children. Growing up with Stephanie was like living with a hurricane you could never predict. My sister is 3 years younger than me, but her presence in our family has always been outsized, mainly due to her idea of humor. From as early as I can remember, Stephanie built a reputation for pulling pranks that only she found funny. When she was 8, she cut up my favorite dress the night before school pictures. At 12, she told my first boyfriend I had a contagious skin disease. By 16, she'd escalated to putting hair removal cream in my conditioner bottle, causing patches of my hair to fall out during finals week. Our parents' response to these incidents followed a predictable pattern: initial shock, minimal discipline, then the refrain that became our family motto: "That's just how Stephanie is." They'd comfort me with "She doesn't mean any harm" and encourage me to develop a thicker skin. Over time, I learned to lock my bedroom door, hide my personal possessions, and keep my private life as far away from Stephanie as possible. When Madison was born 7 years ago, I vowed things would be different. I wanted her to grow up feeling secure, with clear boundaries that everyone respected. For the most part, I succeeded. Jason and I created a stable home for our daughter, and even though my relationship with Stephanie remained strained, family gatherings were manageable when they were infrequent and brief. Madison has always been proud of her hair. She inherited Jason's thick auburn waves, and from the time she was a toddler she loved having it brushed and styled. As she grew older, her attachment to her hair only deepened. While some kids went through phases of wanting dramatic haircuts, Madison consistently asked to grow hers longer. When she was 6, we watched a documentary about children with cancer. The segment showing young girls who had lost their hair to chemotherapy affected Madison deeply. That night, as I tucked her into bed, she made an announcement that filled me with pride. "Mommy, I want to grow my hair super long so I can give it to kids who don't have any." From that moment, Madison's hair became more than just a point of vanity, it was a mission. We researched hair donation programs together, learning the requirements. Her hair needed to be at least 10 inches long, with no chemical treatments. Madison diligently measured her hair growth each month, calculating when she'd reach her goal. By the time of the family reunion, she was just 2 inches away, planning to make the donation before starting 2nd grade. The divorce changed everything. 14 months ago, Jason and I realized our marriage wasn't working. Despite years of counseling and genuine efforts to reconcile our differences, we agreed to co-parent Madison with a week-on, week-off custody arrangement. But the transition was hard on everyone, especially Madison. During this period of upheaval, her hair became even more significant to her, a constant in a world of change. The weekend before the family reunion, I faced a dilemma. An unavoidable work conference coincided with my custody weekend. Jason was on a business trip he couldn't reschedule, and our regular babysitter had a family emergency. After exhausting all other options, I reluctantly called Stephanie. "Of course I'll take her," Stephanie said, sounding genuinely excited. "Madison and I will have a blast, any weekend." Despite my reservations, I felt I had no choice. I reminded Stephanie about Madison's hair donation goal, emphasizing how important it was to her. I know, Stephanie assured me. "Don't worry so much, Amber. I'm not going to mess with her precious hair." I gave Madison extra hugs when I dropped her off, promising I'd see her at the family reunion on Sunday. She seemed happy enough, eager to spend time with the aunt who always brought her extravagant gifts and let her stay up past bedtime. Our extended family has always been close-knit, sometimes suffocatingly so. My maternal grandparents started the tradition of annual reunions when I was a child, and they've continued even after their passing. These gatherings bring together aunts, uncles, cousins, and family friends, about 50 people in total, for a day of food, reminiscing, and the occasional family drama. This particular reunion was being held at my parents' house, a sprawling ranch-style home where Stephanie and I had grown up. In recent years, I'd approached these gatherings with a mixture of obligation and apprehension, aware that they often surfaced unresolved tensions. But this time, juggling the aftermath of my divorce and the pressures of single motherhood, I was actually looking forward to the support and connection of family. How naive I was. The day of the reunion dawned bright and clear. I arrived at my parents' house around noon, carrying a homemade pasta salad and a tote bag with Madison's change of clothes. Cars lined the driveway and spilled onto the street, a testament to our large extended family. The familiar sounds of laughter and conversation drifted from the backyard, where most gatherings were held to accommodate the crowd. My cousin Rachel spotted me first, rushing over for a hug. "Ember, we were just talking about you. How's the new position at work going?" I made small talk as we walked through the house toward the backyard, answering questions about my job while scanning the clusters of relatives for Madison. My Aunt Patricia intercepted us, pulling me into a perfumed embrace. "There's my favorite niece," she said, though she said the same to all her nieces. "You look tired, honey. Is everything okay?" "I'm fine, just busy," I replied automatically. "Have you seen Madison?" "I think the kids are all playing by the treehouse," she said, waving toward the far end of the yard. I spotted my parents at the grill and made my way over. My father was flipping burgers while my mother arranged platters of condiments and side dishes. "There she is," Mom said, giving me a quick hug. "How was the conference?" "Productive but exhausting," I said. "Where's Madison? I missed her." A slight hesitation crossed my mother's face. "I think she's inside with Stephanie. They got here about an hour ago." Something in her tone sent a warning signal through me, but before I could probe further, my father intervened. "Your sister said Madison wasn't feeling well," he explained. "Probably too much sugar. You know how Stephanie spoils her." I frowned. "Madison has a sensitive stomach. Stephanie knows that." Leaving my parents, I headed back toward the house, my pace quickening with each step. Inside, the house was relatively quiet compared to the backyard festivities. I checked the kitchen, the living room, and finally headed down the hallway toward my old bedroom, which my parents had kept largely intact since I moved out. "Madison," I called, "are you in here, sweetie?" A small sniffle came from behind the closed door. I knocked gently before turning the knob. The room was dim, with the blinds drawn against the summer sun. At first I didn't see Madison, but then I noticed a small shape huddled under the covers of my old twin bed. "Madison, what's wrong? Are you feeling sick?" Another sniffle followed by a quiet voice. "I don't want to come out." I sat on the edge of the bed, placing my hand on what I assumed was her shoulder under the blanket. "What happened, baby? You can tell me." "Aunt Stephanie said not to be a baby about it," came the muffled reply. Alarm bells rang louder in my head. "About what, Madison?" After a long pause, the blanket slowly lowered, revealing my daughter's tear-stained face. She was wearing a baseball cap, one I didn't recognize, pulled down tightly over her head. "She said it was just hair," Madison whispered, her bottom lip trembling. With a sense of dread building in my chest, I gently reached for the cap. Madison flinched but didn't stop me as I slowly removed it. The sight knocked the breath from my lungs. My daughter's beautiful auburn hair she had been growing for over a year, measuring carefully each month. Hair that was her pride in connection to her desire to help others was completely gone, not just cut short, but shaved down to the scalp, with uneven patches that suggested it had been done hastily and without care. Madison's eyes welled with fresh tears. "She said I had gum in it, but I didn't, Mom. I didn't have any gum. She just took the clippers and started cutting it all off while I was sleeping. When I woke up and started crying, she laughed and said it would grow back." I struggled to find words to process what I was seeing. Madison, interpreting my silence as disappointment, began to sob. "I won't be able to donate it now," she cried. "All that time growing it, and now it's all gone." I pulled her into my arms, holding her trembling body against mine, feeling her tears soak through my shirt. Over her shoulder I saw the door open wider as Stephanie appeared, leaning against the doorframe with a casual stance that made my blood boil. "There you are," she said, as if nothing was wrong. "Drama queen finally decided to come out of hiding?" Madison burrowed deeper into my embrace, her small body tense with fear and shame. "What did you do?" I asked, my voice barely controlled. Stephanie rolled her eyes. "Relax, it's just hair. She had a huge wad of gum tangled in it. I tried to get it out, but it was impossible. This was the practical solution." "She's lying," Madison whispered against my chest. "Tell me exactly what happened," I demanded, looking directly at Stephanie. My sister shrugged. "We were watching movies last night, and she fell asleep with gum in her mouth. It got in her hair. A big sticky mess. I tried conditioner, peanut butter, ice, all the tricks. Nothing worked, so I made an executive decision." She gestured toward Madison's shaved head. "Problem solved." I looked down at Madison, who was vehemently shaking her head. "There was no gum, Mom," she insisted. "I didn't even have any gum. Aunt Stephanie never gave me any gum." The betrayal on my daughter's face broke something inside me. I could feel the eyes of relatives who had gathered in the hallway, drawn by the commotion. You know she was growing her hair to donate to children with cancer, I said to Stephanie, my voice rising. You knew how important this was to her. Stephanie's expression remained impassive. It's just hair, she repeated, then broke into a smirk. Besides, now she looks like one of those cancer kids she was so worried about. First-hand experience. A collective gasp came from the doorway. Madison's body went rigid in my arms, and I felt a rage unlike anything I'd ever experienced before. The look on Madison's face, humiliated, betrayed, devastated, would haunt me for months to come. Her eyes, swollen from crying, darted nervously between me and Stephanie, silently begging for protection, for someone to make this nightmare stop. Come on, Madison, I said, keeping my voice as steady as possible while standing up. Let's find a quiet place to talk. I guided her past Stephanie, who made no move to get out of our way, forcing us to brush against her as we exited the room. The small gathering of relatives in the hallway parted wordlessly, their expressions ranging from shock to uncomfortable curiosity. I caught my cousin Rachel's eye, and she gave me a sympathetic look before glaring at Stephanie. We found refuge in my parents' home office, a rarely used room at the end of the hall. I closed the door behind us and sat on the leather love seat, pulling Madison onto my lap despite her being almost too big for it now. For several minutes I just held her while she cried, rubbing her back and kissing the top of her now bare head. I hate her, Madison finally whispered. I hate Aunt Stephanie. It's okay to be angry, I told her. What she did was wrong. Why would she do this to me? Madison asked, her voice breaking. She waited until I was asleep, Mom. I woke up when I felt the buzzing on my head, but she held me down and kept going. She said if I didn't stop squirming she might cut my ear. Each word was like a knife to my heart. The premeditated cruelty, the physical restraint of my child, the threats. This went beyond even Stephanie's usual boundary violations. This was abuse. I'm so sorry, sweetheart, I said, fighting to keep my own tears at bay. I should never have left you with her. Madison looked up at me, her face serious beyond her years. It's not your fault, Mom. Aunt Stephanie is just mean. She always has been. Before I could respond, a sharp knock came at the door, and without waiting for a response, my mother entered. Her eyes widened at the sight of Madison's shaved head in full light. Oh my, she said, hand flying to her mouth. Stephanie said she cut Madison's hair, but I didn't realize. She didn't cut it, Grandma, Madison corrected, her voice small but firm. She shaved it all off while I was sleeping, and there was no gum. My mother's face crumpled in confusion, but why would she make that up? Because Stephanie enjoys hurting people, I said flatly. She always has, and you and Dad have always made excuses for her. Mom's expression hardened. Now, Amber, that's not fair. Your sister has her ways, but she wouldn't intentionally hurt Madison. Are you calling my daughter a liar? I asked, feeling Madison tense in my arms. No, of course not, Mom backpedaled. I'm just saying there must be some misunderstanding. The door opened wider as my father joined us, followed closely by Stephanie. The small office suddenly felt crowded and tense. What's going on in here? Dad asked. The whole family is wondering where everyone disappeared to. Your daughter, I said, pointing at Stephanie, held down my child and forcibly shaved her head while she was sleeping for fun. Oh, come on, Stephanie scoffed. Why would I do that? There was gum in her hair. I was trying to help. There was no gum, Madison shouted, surprising all of us with her volume. You're a liar. Madison, my father admonished. We don't speak to adults that way. I stood up, setting Madison aside. No, Dad, she's right. Stephanie is lying, and I want her to admit it now. Stephanie crossed her arms. This is ridiculous. It's just hair. It grows back. Why is everyone making such a big deal out of this? Because it wasn't your decision to make, I shouted, my control finally breaking. You had no right to touch my daughter's body without her consent, let alone hold her down and forcibly shave her head while she begged you to stop. A heavy silence followed my outburst, broken only by Madison's renewed sniffles. My father looked uncomfortable, while my mother seemed torn. Maybe we should all take a breather, Dad suggested. There are people waiting outside, food getting cold. I don't care about the food or the reunion, I interrupted. My daughter was assaulted by her aunt, and you're worried about the barbecue? More family members had gathered outside the door, straining to hear the confrontation. I spotted my Aunt Patricia and Uncle Robert along with several cousins. I think you're overreacting, Stephanie said, looking around for support. Kids get bad haircuts all the time. Remember when Mom gave you that awful bowl cut in 3rd grade? This isn't the same thing and you know it, I said through gritted teeth. Madison was growing her hair for cancer patients, you knew that. So she'll do it next year, Stephanie shrugged. Or better yet, now she can see firsthand what those kids feel like. Madison burst into tears again at this, and I wrapped my arm around her shoulders protectively. That's enough, Stephanie, my mother finally said, her voice firm. What you did was inappropriate. Oh, so you're taking her side now? Stephanie asked incredulously. After all the times you told Amber to lighten up about my pranks, this is the same thing. It's not the same, Mom insisted, though her voice lacked conviction. Madison is just a child. I was just a child too. When she put hair removal cream in my conditioner, I reminded her, but you told me to get over it because that's just how Stephanie is. My father sighed heavily. Look, what's done is done. The hair will grow back. Let's just try to salvage what's left of the reunion. I stared at him in disbelief. Are you serious right now? Your father's right, Mom said, placing a hand on my arm. Everyone's waiting. We can sort this out later as a family. No, I said, shaking her hand off. There's nothing to sort out. Madison and I are leaving. Don't be dramatic, Amber, Stephanie said with an eye roll. It's not like I hurt her. But you did hurt me, Madison said quietly, looking directly at her aunt. You hurt me on purpose, and now you're lying about it. For just a moment I saw something flicker across Stephanie's face, not remorse exactly, but perhaps the realization that this time her actions had consequences she hadn't anticipated. Then the moment passed, and her usual smirk returned. Whatever, you always were your mother's daughter, no sense of humor. I gathered Madison's things while family members alternated between trying to convince us to stay and awkwardly pretending nothing was wrong. My cousin Rachel offered to come with us, but I declined. This was something Madison and I needed to process together. As we headed for the door, my mother made one last attempt. Amber, please, it's just hair. Don't ruin the reunion over this. I turned to face her, Madison's hand firmly in mine. That's the problem, Mom. To you, it's always just something, just a dress, just a rumor, just hair. But to the person being hurt, it's never just anything. It's a violation. I looked around at the gathered family members. And anyone who thinks what happened today is acceptable isn't someone I want in my daughter's life right now. With those words hanging in the air, Madison and I walked out, leaving behind a stunned silence. The drive home was punctuated by Madison's quiet sobs. She sat in the back seat, refusing to remove the baseball cap Stephanie had given her like it was some kind of consolation prize. She said bitterly, each traffic light was an exercise in restraint, as I fought the urge to turn around and confront my sister again. This time without the audience of relatives to moderate my response. What am I going to tell my friends? Madison asked as we neared our neighborhood. Everyone at school is going to laugh at me. I adjusted the rearview mirror to see her better. We'll figure it out together, sweetheart, and anyone who laughs isn't a real friend. Emma has been growing her hair too, she continued, referring to her best friend who had joined her donation pledge. Now she'll do it without me. The unfairness of it all struck me anew. This wasn't just about appearance, it was about Madison's agency, her commitment to a cause, her trust in family, all destroyed in one cruel act. As soon as we got home, my phone began buzzing with texts and calls. I ignored them all, focusing instead on helping Madison process what had happened. We sat on her bed, surrounded by the stuffed animals she still cherished despite claiming to be too old for them now. I want to call Dad, she said eventually. Jason and I had our differences, but he was a good father who loved Madison fiercely. I dialed his number and he picked up on the second ring. Everything okay? He asked immediately, unused to calls during my custody time. No, I said, putting the phone on speaker. Something happened with Stephanie. I let Madison tell him, watching his name flash on the screen as she detailed the horror of waking up to find her aunt cutting off her hair. When she finished, there was a long silence. Jason, I prompted. I'm going to kill her, he said finally, his voice deadly calm. I'm on my way home. I'll be there in 3 hours. You don't need to cut your trip short. Yes, I do, he interrupted. My daughter needs me, and apparently your sister needs to be reminded that actions have consequences. After we hung up, my phone buzzed again with a text from my mother. Mom, you're making this into a bigger deal than it needs to be. Stephanie feels terrible. Please come back so we can talk this through. I showed the message to Madison, who shook her head vehemently. She doesn't feel terrible, Madison insisted. She laughed the whole time, Mom, even when I was crying. I typed a response. If Stephanie felt terrible, she would have apologized instead of making jokes about cancer patients. We're not coming back today. Madison needs space from all of you right now. The response was immediate. You're punishing the whole family for one mistake. That's not fair to everyone who was looking forward to seeing you both. The audacity of making this about everyone else's disappointment rather than Madison's trauma ignited my rage anew. I turned off my phone completely, deciding that whatever family fallout occurred could wait until my daughter was feeling more secure. We spent the evening watching Madison's favorite movies, but she was withdrawn and quiet. When bedtime came, she asked if she could sleep in my room. I keep thinking about it, she admitted as I tucked her into my bed. Every time I close my eyes, I feel the buzzing on my head again. I lay beside her, stroking her arm until she fell into a restless sleep. Then I retrieved my phone and turned it back on to find 17 missed calls, 23 text messages, and several voicemails, some from family members expressing concern, others demanding explanations for our dramatic exit. One text from Stephanie stood out: "Way to turn everyone against me over a haircut. Real mature, Amber. Mom and Dad are furious with me because of your overreaction." I started to type a scathing response, then deleted it. Engaging with Stephanie now would only escalate the situation further, and my priority had to be Madison. A knock at the door startled me. It was only 9 p.m., but we rarely had unexpected visitors. Through the peephole I saw Stephanie, and my stomach clenched. "I know you're in there," she called, knocking again more forcefully. "Your car is in the driveway." I considered ignoring her, but the thought of her continued knocking waking Madison made me reluctantly open the door, blocking the entrance with my body. "What do you want?" I asked coldly. Stephanie held up a shopping bag. "I brought a peace offering." Without waiting for an invitation, she pushed past me into the living room. "Where's Madison? I got her something." "She's asleep," I said, keeping my voice low, "and I want you to leave." "Not until I fix this," Stephanie insisted, reaching into the bag and pulling out a cheap synthetic wig in a shade of red that looked nothing like Madison's natural auburn. "See, problem solved." The casual way she presented this solution, as if a $15 Halloween accessory could undo the trauma she'd inflicted, pushed me over the edge. "Are you serious right now?" I hissed. "You think a tacky wig makes up for what you did?" Stephanie's expression hardened. "I'm trying to help, Amber, but you're determined to paint me as the villain like always." "Like always," I repeated incredulously. "You've been tormenting me our entire lives, and now you've moved on to my daughter. When does it end, Stephanie?" "Tormenting you?" she laughed. "That's a bit dramatic, don't you think? They were just pranks." "They were never just pranks to me," I said, feeling decades of suppressed anger finally breaking free. "They were humiliating, cruel, and sometimes physically painful, but our parents taught me to accept your abuse as normal, to see myself as the problem for being too sensitive. I won't let Madison learn those same lessons." "Abuse?" Stephanie scoffed. "God, you always were jealous of me. Mom and Dad paid so much attention to me because I was fun and spontaneous, while you were this uptight, boring rule follower." "They paid attention to you because you were constantly causing problems," I countered, "and I followed rules because someone in this family had to be responsible." Our rising voices had done what I feared. Madison appeared in the hallway, rubbing her eyes, the baseball cap still firmly on her head. When she spotted Stephanie, she froze. "What is she doing here?" Madison asked, her voice small and frightened. "I brought you a present," Stephanie said, her tone suddenly syrupy sweet. She held up the wig. "See, now no one will know the difference." Madison's face crumpled. "I don't want a wig, I want my real hair back." "Well, that's not possible, is it?" Stephanie said with exaggerated patience. "So this is the next best thing, come try it on." She moved toward Madison, who backed away until she hit the wall. "Don't touch me," Madison whispered. Stephanie ignored her, continuing to advance with the wig. "Don't be difficult, Madison, I'm trying to help." I stepped between them. She said, "No, Stephanie, back off." "Oh, for God's sake," Stephanie exclaimed, trying to reach around me. "Just put the damn wig on so everyone can stop acting like I committed some horrible crime." In her aggressive movement, she shoved me aside, lunging toward Madison with the wig. Madison let out a terrified scream, covering her head with her arms. Without thinking, I grabbed Stephanie's wrist and yanked her backward with such force that she stumbled. "Get out of my house," I demanded, my voice dangerously quiet. "Now." "You're insane," Stephanie spat, rubbing her wrist. "Both of you are completely overreacting. It's pathetic." "The only pathetic thing here is a grown woman who gets pleasure from terrorizing a child," I said. "Get out before I call the police and report what you did as assault, because that's what it was." "You wouldn't dare," Stephanie said, but uncertainty flickered in her eyes. "Try me," I challenged. "Madison has marks on her arms from where you held her down. I've taken pictures. One call and you'll be explaining to a lot more people than just our family why you forcibly restrained and shaved the head of a 7-year-old. We stared at each other for a long moment, decades of unresolved conflict hanging in the air between us. Finally, Stephanie threw the wig on the floor. You always were a vindictive bitch, she said, heading for the door. No wonder Jason left you. After she slammed the door behind her, I rushed to Madison, who had slid down the wall to sit huddled on the floor, tears streaming down her face. Is she going to come back? Madison asked, trembling. I held her close, making a silent vow. No, sweetheart, she's not coming anywhere near you ever again. The next morning, Madison refused to get out of bed. I'd already called her school to explain the situation and gotten permission for her to take a few days off, but seeing her hiding under the blankets broke my heart all over again. I'm not going, she said when I gently suggested we get some breakfast. I'm never going anywhere again. I called my office and spoke with my supervisor, who was surprisingly understanding when I explained I needed a personal day for a family crisis. Then I crawled into bed beside Madison, over the covers to her under them, creating a cocoon where we could talk. I know today feels impossible, I told her, but I promise you, we're going to get through this together. I look like a freak, she whispered. No, you don't, I assured her. You look like a brave, strong girl who had something unfair happen to her. We lay there in silence for a while before Madison spoke again. Why does Aunt Stephanie hate me? The question caught me off guard. Sweetie, this isn't about you. Stephanie has always been this way. She hurts people and calls it jokes because she doesn't understand or care about how her actions affect others. But why? It was a profound question, one I'd asked myself many times over the years. Why was my sister the way she was? Was it nature or nurture? Had our parents' permissiveness created this monster, or would Stephanie have turned out this way regardless? I don't know, I admitted. Some people just don't have the same empathy that others do. They can't put themselves in someone else's shoes. Madison seemed to consider this. Do you think she'll ever change? I don't know that either, I said honestly. But what I do know is that we don't have to keep people in our lives who hurt us, even if they're family. The doorbell rang, startling us both. Madison clutched my arm. Is that her? I doubt it, I said, though I wasn't sure. Stay here, I'll check. Peering through the peephole, I was shocked to see Stephanie again, this time with our mother beside her. I opened the door just a crack, the chain still engaged. What do you want? I asked. We need to talk, Mom said, as a family. I have nothing to say to either of you right now. Ember, please, Mom pleaded. This has gone far enough. Your sister wants to apologize. I looked at Stephanie, whose expression was more annoyed than contrite. Is that true? Stephanie rolled her eyes. Fine, I'm sorry Madison didn't like her haircut. That's not an apology, I said flatly. That's deflecting responsibility. See, Stephanie turned to our mother. Nothing I say will ever be good enough for her. Mom sighed. Ember, can we please come in? It's uncomfortable talking through the door like this. Against my better judgment, I unlatched the chain and let them enter. Stephanie immediately headed for the kitchen like she owned the place, opening my refrigerator and helping herself to a can of soda. Where's Madison? Mom asked, looking around. In bed, I said. She's traumatized. She doesn't want to see anyone. Traumatized? Stephanie echoed mockingly. It's a haircut, not a war zone. It wasn't a haircut, I corrected, keeping my voice level. It was a violation. You held her down while she begged you to stop. You threatened her. You laughed at her tears. That's not how it happened, Stephanie insisted. Then how did it happen? I challenged. Because Madison's story has remained consistent, while you've changed yours multiple times. I don't have to justify myself to you, Stephanie said, crushing the now empty soda can in her fist. Mom and Dad always took your side growing up, even though you were the one who started most of our fights. I stared at her in disbelief. What alternate reality did you grow up in? They always excused your behavior no matter how cruel or destructive it was. Girls, please, Mom interjected. This isn't helping. You're right, I agreed. Nothing about this conversation is helpful. I want you both to leave. Not until we resolve this, Mom insisted. I won't have my family torn apart over a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misunderstanding, came a small voice from the hallway. Madison stood there, the baseball cap firmly in place, her face pale but determined. Stephanie immediately shifted her demeanor, her voice becoming sugary sweet. Madison, I'm so sorry about your hair, sweetie. I was just trying to help with the gum. There was no gum, Madison said quietly. You made that up. Of course there was gum, Stephanie countered. You were asleep, so you didn't know. Then where is it? Madison asked. Where's the gum you supposedly cut out? Stephanie hesitated. I threw it away, obviously. No, you didn't, Madison said, her confidence growing. Because there was no gum. You told me you did it because it would be funny to see Mom's face when she saw me. Mom turned to Stephanie, shock evident in her expression. Is that true? Of course not, Stephanie scoffed. She's making that up. I have a recording, Madison announced. We all stared at her. What recording? I asked. Madison pulled a small device from her pocket, the digital voice recorder I'd bought her for dictating stories, as she preferred creating narratives verbally before writing them down. I started recording after Aunt Stephanie shaved my head, Madison explained. I thought no one would believe me. She pressed play and Stephanie's voice filled the room. Stop crying already, it's just hair. Besides, it'll be hilarious to see your mom's face tomorrow. She'll totally freak out, and everyone will think she's overreacting, just like they always do. It'll be the best joke ever. Madison's small tear-filled voice followed. But why would you do this to me? I was growing it for the cancer kids. Oh, who cares? Stephanie's recorded voice replied dismissively. Those kids get all kinds of free wigs anyway. Now you look just like them, so you can tell your mom it was for solidarity or whatever. I felt physically ill listening to the callous cruelty in my sister's voice. Mom's face had gone pale, her hand covering her mouth in horror. Stephanie lunged for the recorder. Give me that, you little sneak, you can't record people without permission. Madison darted behind me, clutching the device. It's my recorder, and you were in my room. You manipulative little. Stephanie started, trying to reach around me. Don't you dare, I warned, blocking her path. Touch my daughter again and I swear to God. Stephanie. What? She challenged, her face contorted with rage. What will you do? Amber, run crying to Mom and Dad like always. They can't protect you anymore. No, I said calmly. I'll file a police report for assault and get a restraining order against you. For a haircut, she laughed, but there was uncertainty in her eyes. For forcibly restraining a minor and committing battery against her, I clarified. For causing emotional distress, for everything you've ever done to me and now to my child. You wouldn't, she said, but she didn't sound convinced. Try me, I replied. Madison's recording is just the beginning. I've documented every instance of your pranks for years, every cruel joke, every humiliation, every time you've crossed the line. I have a file dating back to high school. This wasn't entirely true. I hadn't been that methodical, but Stephanie didn't need to know that. You're crazy, she spat. No, I'm done, I corrected. Done letting you hurt me, done letting you near my child, done pretending your behavior is normal or acceptable in any way. Girls, please, Mom pleaded again, tears in her eyes. We're family. We can work this out. Being family doesn't give anyone the right to abuse others, I said firmly. Stephanie has been doing this her entire life, and you and Dad have enabled it every step of the way. I won't do the same for Madison. This is ridiculous, Stephanie exclaimed. Mom, are you going to let her talk to me like this? Before Mom could answer, Madison spoke up again. Why do you like hurting people, Aunt Stephanie? The simple, direct question seemed to catch Stephanie off guard. I don't. That's not. For once, she appeared at a loss for words. You do, Madison persisted. You hurt me on purpose. You said it would be funny. Stephanie's face hardened. You're just like your mother, too sensitive. Can't take a joke. It's not a joke if the other person isn't laughing, Madison said quietly. That's what Mom always tells me. In that moment, I felt a surge of pride through my anger. My 7-year-old daughter had more emotional intelligence than my 31-year-old sister. Stephanie turned to our mother. Are you just going to stand there while they gang up on me? Mom looked between us, conflict evident on her face. Finally, she sighed heavily. Stephanie, I think it's time for us to go. What, you're taking their side? Stephanie's voice rose in disbelief. I heard the recording, Mom said quietly. There was no gum, you lied. So what? Stephanie exploded. It was a joke. Why is everyone acting like I committed some horrible crime? Because you did something cruel to a child, Mom replied, her voice uncharacteristically firm, and instead of apologizing and trying to make it right, you're making excuses and attacking everyone else. Stephanie's face twisted with rage. She grabbed the cheap wig from where it still lay on the floor and thrust it toward Madison. Here, put this on so everyone can stop acting like it's the end of the world. Madison shrank back in fear and something in me snapped. I grabbed Stephanie's wrist, forcing her to drop the wig. Get out, I said, my voice dangerously quiet. Get out of my house and don't come near my daughter ever again. For a moment I thought Stephanie might actually strike me. Instead, she yanked her arm free and stormed toward the door. You've always been jealous of me, she spat. Now you've turned everyone against me, even Mom. I hope you're happy. The door slammed behind her with such force that a framed photo fell from the wall and shattered on the floor. Mom stood awkwardly in the suddenly quiet living room. Amber, you should go too, I said, too drained for another confrontation. I didn't know, she whispered. I never thought she would hurt Madison deliberately. That's the problem, Mom, I replied. You never wanted to see who Stephanie really is. It was easier to tell me to lighten up than to address her behavior. I looked at Madison, who was watching us with wide, solemn eyes. But I won't make the same mistake with my daughter. After Mom left, I swept up the broken glass from the fallen photo, a symbolic end to the illusion of family harmony I'd tried so hard to maintain. Madison helped me, carefully picking up the larger shards. Are we never going to see Aunt Stephanie again? She asked. Not unless she makes some major changes, I told her honestly, and even then, only if you want to. Madison nodded, considering this. I don't want to right now. Then you won't have to, I promised, sealing a pact that would reshape our family dynamics forever. The day after the confrontation, Madison and I sat at our kitchen table over bowls of cereal that neither of us was eating. The silence between us wasn't uncomfortable, but it was heavy with unspoken fears and questions. What happens now? Madison finally asked, pushing her soggy cereal around with her spoon. It was a profound question from such a young child, and it deserved a thoughtful answer. First, I said, reaching across the table to take her hand, we need to talk about what happened, not just the what but the why what Aunt Stephanie did was wrong, and why it's never okay for someone to treat you that way. Madison nodded solemnly. She's a bully. Yes, I agreed, and bullies want you to feel powerless, but you're not Madison. What happened to you was wrong, but how we respond is up to us. I still don't want to go to school, she said, her eyes filling with tears. Everyone will laugh at me. Some might, I acknowledged, knowing that false reassurances would only undermine her trust, but many won't, and we can find ways to help you feel more confident. Madison considered this, tugging at the baseball cap she still refused to remove. Like what? Well, I said we could go shopping for some pretty headscarves or hats, not to hide but to make a style statement. You could choose whatever colors you like. A flicker of interest crossed her face. Could I get a purple one? Absolutely, I smiled. Purple, blue, rainbow, whatever you want. Later that morning we visited a mall across town, where Madison was unlikely to run into classmates. At a boutique specializing in accessories, she tried on various headscarves and barrettes, gradually becoming more animated with each new option. The saleswoman, sensing our situation, was wonderfully supportive, showing Madison different ways to tie and style the scarves. You have a beautiful face shape, she told Madison. You can really pull off this look. By the time we left, Madison had selected 5 colorful headscarves, 2 barrettes, and a wide-brimmed sun hat she particularly loved. It wasn't a solution to everything, but it was a start, a way for her to reclaim some control over her appearance. On the way home, I made a spontaneous turn toward the children's hospital where Madison had planned to donate her hair. What are we doing here? She asked as I parked. I had an idea, I told her. Remember why you were growing your hair in the first place? She nodded. To donate it to kids with cancer. Well, those kids are still here, and they might appreciate meeting someone who cares enough about them to grow her hair just for them. Only if you want to, though. Madison thought about it for a moment. But I don't have my hair to donate anymore. That doesn't matter, I said. What matters is that you care. Sometimes just visiting can mean a lot. After a moment's hesitation, Madison agreed. We checked in at the visitor's desk, explaining our purpose, and were directed to a recreational therapy room where some of the pediatric oncology patients spent time between treatments. The room was bright and colorful, with artwork covering the walls and toys scattered across tables. About half a dozen children were there, some with hair, others without, all engaged in various activities under the watchful eye of a therapist. Madison gripped my hand tightly as we entered, suddenly shy. The therapist, a warm woman named Ms. Rivera, approached us with a welcoming smile. You must be Madison, she said. Your mom called earlier. I understand you're interested in hair donation. Madison nodded. I was growing it out to donate, but... She trailed off, and I gently urged her to continue. My aunt cut it off without asking, Madison finished, her voice barely audible. Ms. Rivera's expression softened with understanding. May I tell you something, Madison? What matters most to these kids isn't the hair itself, it's knowing that someone out there cares enough to think about them and what they're going through. She introduced us to several children, including a 9-year-old girl named Lily who was reading in a corner. Lily had been in treatment for leukemia for over a year and was currently bald, but wore a bright yellow bandana covered in sunflowers. I like your scarf, Madison said shyly. Thanks, Lily replied. I have like 20 different ones. They're way more fun than wigs, which are all itchy. Really? Madison asked, surprised. Totally, Lily confirmed. Plus, you can match them to your outfit. Want to see my collection? Madison glanced at me and at my nod, followed Lily to a cubby where she kept some of her personal items. As the girls compared headscarf styles, I watched Madison's posture gradually relax, her gestures becoming more animated. By the time we left an hour later, Madison had made a new friend and gained a perspective that no amount of parental reassurance could have provided. In the car, she was uncharacteristically quiet, lost in thought. "What are you thinking about, sweetheart?" I asked. Lily said when her hair fell out she cried for 3 days, Madison replied, but now she doesn't even care about it anymore. She says what matters is being alive. The profound simplicity of this insight hung between us. She also said kids at school were mean at first, but then her teacher talked to everyone about cancer and why some medicines make your hair fall out, and after that, most of them stopped being jerks. I nodded, making a mental note to speak with Madison's teacher before she returned to school. "Mom," Madison said as we pulled into our driveway, "I think I want to go back to school tomorrow." I looked at her in surprise. "Are you sure? You can take more time if you need it." "I'm sure," she said with newfound determination. "Lily goes to her school even when she feels sick from her medicine. I can go to mine with no hair." That afternoon, while Madison was napping, exhausted from the emotional day, I made several important calls. First, to our family lawyer, inquiring about the process for a temporary restraining order against Stephanie. While what she had done might not meet the legal threshold in some jurisdictions, the recording Madison had made provided compelling evidence of deliberate emotional distress. Next, I called Madison's teacher, explaining the situation and asking for her support. When Madison returned to class, Ms. Winters was appropriately horrified and immediately offered to facilitate a classroom discussion about respecting bodily autonomy and different appearances, without specifically singling out Madison. Finally, I called my parents. My father answered, his voice guarded. "Amber, your mother told me what happened yesterday." "And," I prompted when he didn't continue. He sighed heavily, "and I owe you an apology, many apologies in fact, going back years." The admission stunned me into silence. "We never should have allowed Stephanie's behavior," he continued. "We thought we were keeping the peace, but really, we were just enabling her at your expense." "Yes," I agreed, finding my voice. "You were." "Is Madison okay?" he asked. I considered the question carefully. "She's processing. She's stronger than any of us gave her credit for, but what happened will leave scars, Dad, even if they're not visible." "I understand," he said quietly. "What can we do?" "Respect our boundaries," I told him. "I don't want Stephanie anywhere near Madison until she gets professional help and demonstrates real change, and even then it would be Madison's choice whether to have a relationship with her." "That seems fair," he agreed, surprising me again. "As for you and Mom," I continued, "I think we need some family therapy sessions. This goes beyond what happened to Madison. It's decades of dysfunctional patterns that need addressing." To my shock, he didn't object. "Your mother already found someone, a family therapist who specializes in adult sibling relationships. She was hoping you might consider attending a session next week." After we hung up, I sat in stunned silence, processing this unexpected shift. For the first time in my life, my parents seemed to be acknowledging the toxic dynamics that had shaped our family. It wasn't a solution, but it was a start. Madison appeared in the doorway, her new purple scarf tied around her head. "Was that Grandpa?" she asked, having clearly overheard part of the conversation. I nodded. "He wanted to check on you." "Is he mad at Aunt Stephanie?" "Yes," I said truthfully. "They both are. They understand now that what she did was very wrong." Madison processed this information. "Good," she said finally. "She needs a time out." The simplicity of her assessment made me smile despite everything. "A very long time out," I agreed. That evening, Jason arrived as promised, having driven straight from his business trip. The moment Madison saw him, she ran into his arms, finally allowing herself to remove the headscarf and fully reveal her shaved head. "You look like a warrior," he told her, examining her head gently, "like those female generals in that movie we watched." Madison managed a small smile. "Really?" "Absolutely," he assured her. "Anyone who messes with you at school is going to have to answer to me." While Madison showed him her new collection of headscarves, Jason and I had a hushed conversation in the kitchen. He was furious but controlled, focusing on practical next steps rather than retribution. "I've already texted my attorney," he said. "We're adding language to our custody agreement specifying that Stephanie is not allowed unsupervised contact with Madison under any circumstances." I nodded my agreement. "I've spoken with our lawyer about a restraining order." "Good," he said grimly. "I'll support that however I can." As we worked together to prepare dinner, I felt something shift between Jason and me. A renewed alliance formed through our shared determination to protect our daughter. We had failed our marriage, but we wouldn't fail Madison. That night, after Jason left with a promise to pick Madison up for school the next morning, my daughter asked to sleep in her own bed for the first time since the incident. "Are you sure?" I asked, prepared to spend another night beside her if needed. She nodded, adjusting her favorite stuffed bear on the pillow. "I'm not scared anymore, just sad sometimes and a little angry." I sat on the edge of her bed. "Those feelings are completely normal, and they'll take time to work through." "How long?" she asked. "I don't know," I admitted, "but you won't have to deal with them alone." As I turned to leave, Madison called me back. "Mom, I've been thinking about something Lily said today." "What's that, sweetheart?" "She said that when bad things happen, sometimes the only way to feel better is to use them to help other people." I nodded, moved by the wisdom being exchanged between these children facing such different but significant challenges. "I think I want to start a club at school," Madison continued, "for kids who feel different or get bullied, so they don't have to feel alone." In that moment, watching my daughter transform her pain into purpose, I glimpsed the remarkable woman she would one day become and the healing that had already begun. 1 month after what Madison now referred to as the haircut incident, we stood outside her classroom, preparing for her first full day back at school. She had attended half-days for the past 2 weeks, gradually reacclimating to the school environment with the support of Ms. Winters and the school counselor. Today, Madison wore her favorite purple headscarf, coordinated with purple sneakers and a denim overall dress. Her expression was a mixture of determination and apprehension as she clutched her backpack straps. "Remember, I told her, kneeling to eye level, you don't owe anyone an explanation. If you want to share what happened, that's your choice. If not, Ms. Winters will make sure no one pressures you." Madison nodded. "I think I want to tell people, not everyone but my friends." "Whatever feels right to you," I assured her. Ms. Winters greeted us at the classroom door, her warm smile putting us both at ease. As planned, she had already facilitated several class discussions about empathy, personal boundaries, and respect for differences, all without explicitly mentioning Madison's situation. "We're so happy to have you back full-time, Madison," she said. "We missed your contributions to our morning circle." Madison gave me one last hug before joining her classmates, many of whom welcomed her with enthusiasm. Standing in the doorway, I watched as her best friend Emma immediately complimented her headscarf. The knot of anxiety in my chest began to loosen. As I turned to leave, I noticed a bulletin board in the hallway titled "Our Unique Selves." It was covered with student artwork depicting various aspects of identity and individuality. In one corner, I spotted a drawing signed by Madison, a figure wearing different colored headscarves, surrounded by the words "Different can be beautiful." My eyes filled with tears, not of sadness but of pride. Despite everything, Madison was finding her way forward, creating meaning from an experience that could have crushed her spirit. In the weeks following the incident, our family had undergone significant changes. Jason and I had established a united front regarding Stephanie, formalizing the new custody stipulation that barred her from unsupervised contact with Madison. The temporary restraining order against Stephanie had been granted, primarily due to Madison's recording and the physical marks documented from when Stephanie had held her down. Family therapy had begun, though Stephanie refused to attend. My parents, however, had surprised me with their commitment to the process. During our sessions, painful truths emerged about the dysfunctional dynamics that had shaped our family for decades, how Stephanie's behavior had been excused as spirited while my objections were dismissed as oversensitive, creating a cycle that perpetuated abuse. "We failed you," my mother admitted during one particularly emotional session. "We thought we were being fair by not taking sides, but our neutrality wasn't neutral at all, it favored the aggressor." My father, traditionally stoic, had broken down in tears when confronted with the cumulative impact of his passivity. "I never wanted to rock the boat," he confessed, "but in trying to keep the peace, I allowed you to be hurt repeatedly. I can't change the past, but I want to do better now for you and for Madison." These acknowledgments, while decades overdue, were healing in ways I hadn't anticipated. The validation of my experiences lifted a burden I hadn't fully recognized I was carrying. Stephanie, meanwhile, had initially retreated into victimhood, telling anyone who would listen that the family was overreacting and ganging up on her. When that narrative failed to gain traction, she switched to minimization, then to half-hearted apologies clearly designed to restore her access to the family rather than express genuine remorse. After being served with the restraining order, she had shown up at my parents' house in tears, claiming she never meant to hurt anyone and begging them to intervene. To their credit, they had held firm to the boundaries we'd established. "We love you," my father told her, according to my mother's later account, "but what you did was wrong, and there are consequences. You need help, Stephanie, and until you get it, things can't go back to the way they were." It was the first time in her life that Stephanie had faced real accountability for her actions. Whether it would lead to meaningful change remained to be seen, but the pattern had been broken. That alone felt like a victory. Madison's recovery progressed in fits and starts. Some days she seemed completely at peace with her new appearance, proudly sporting her collection of headscarves and hats. Other days she mourned the loss of her hair and the violation of trust it represented. The school counselor assured me this oscillation was normal and healthy, a sign that Madison was processing her trauma rather than suppressing it. True to her word, Madison had started a friendship club at school, meeting during lunch on Wednesdays with a small group of students who felt marginalized for various reasons. With Ms. Winner's supervision, they discussed their experiences and brainstormed ways to support each other. The initiative had even been featured in the school newsletter, earning Madison recognition from the principal. Most surprisingly, Madison had maintained her connection with Lily from the pediatric cancer ward. What had begun as a chance encounter had evolved into a genuine friendship, with Madison visiting Lily at least twice a month. During a recent visit, Lily had excitedly shown Madison her latest medical results, indicating that her treatment was working. "See this line going down?" Lily had explained, pointing to a graph. "That means the bad cells are dying. Soon I'll start growing my hair back, just like you." Indeed, Madison's hair was beginning to return, a soft fuzz covering her scalp, already showing its natural auburn color. She examined it daily in the mirror, measuring its progress with the same dedication she'd once applied to tracking its growth for donation. "When it's long enough, I'm still going to donate it," she'd declared, "but this time I'm keeping some for me too, and I'm going to let it be curly." This small assertion of autonomy represented a significant shift in her perspective, a recognition that she could care for others without diminishing herself. As for me, the experience had transformed my understanding of motherhood and family. I'd always believed that protecting Madison meant shielding her from pain, but I now realized that true protection sometimes meant teaching her how to face adversity and emerge stronger. It meant modeling boundary setting and self-respect, especially when it was difficult. Our relationship with Stephanie remained severed, at least for now. The door wasn't permanently closed. With sincere effort and professional help, reconciliation might someday be possible, but that decision would ultimately be Madison's to make when she was older. My parents, eager to rebuild trust, had respected our need for space while finding appropriate ways to support Madison. They sent cards and care packages but refrained from pressing for visits until Madison indicated she was ready. When that day came, the reunion was tentative but heartfelt, with my father getting on his knees to apologize directly to his granddaughter. "I should have protected you better," he told her, his voice thick with emotion, "and I promise I will from now on." Madison, in her boundless capacity for forgiveness, had wrapped her arms around his neck. "It's okay, Grandpa, we all make mistakes. That's what Mom says." Jason and I had found a new equilibrium in our co-parenting relationship. United by our shared commitment to Madison's well-being, the adversity had clarified our priorities, reminding us that despite our differences, we were still a family, not in the traditional sense, perhaps, but in all the ways that mattered. As I drove home from dropping Madison at school, I reflected on the journey of the past month. The pain wasn't gone, nor should it be forgotten, but it had been transformed into something constructive, a foundation for growth, a catalyst for change, a lesson in resilience. Madison's words from the night before echoed in my mind. "Mom, do you think my hair will be different when it grows back?" she had asked as I tucked her in. "It might be," I'd replied. "Sometimes hair texture changes after it's been cut very short." She had considered this thoughtfully. "I think I'll be different too, when it's all grown back, not just my hair, but me." "Different how?" I'd asked. "Stronger," she said simply, "like when you break a bone and it heals even stronger at the broken place." Out of the mouth of babes, I thought, smiling at the memory. Madison had articulated perfectly what I was only beginning to understand, that sometimes it's through our deepest wounds that we discover our greatest strength. The road ahead wouldn't be easy. There would be more difficult conversations, more tears, more moments of anger and grief, but there would also be growth, healing, and a deeper appreciation for the relationships that truly nourished us. Family, I had finally learned, wasn't defined by blood or obligation, but by respect, love, and the courage to protect what matters, even when that meant walking away from those who refused to respect boundaries. As I pulled into the driveway of our home, I felt a sense of peace that had eluded me for years. Madison and I were going to be okay. More than okay, we were going to be stronger, wiser, and more authentic in how we navigated our relationships in the world. Have you ever had to set a difficult boundary with a family member? How did you find the courage to stand your ground when others pressured you to keep the peace? Share your experiences in the comments below, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video if my story resonated with you. Remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself and your children is to say no more to toxic behavior, even when it comes from family. Thank you for watching, and I wish you strength and clarity on your own journey of healing.